Back to El Pozo, the Primera REF show. I'm your host, Nick Bell, for this evening for the second episode back of the season. And excitement is building as the Primera REF kicks off this weekend. I know somebody who's just as excited as me is joining me for this evening. Liam, fresh from Spain, how are you doing?
Yeah, very good. One of those ones where you really like to have been there the following weekend, although I got to watch lots of football. I would like to have also seen some Primera RF, but just 1 week too soon, unfortunately, my trip. So yeah, but very excited to be watching some this weekend.
Yeah, and a nice Malaga Cordoba double isn't too bad. Two recent teams of Primera Federación as well, so we'll let you off this time, Liam, and obviously wearing your Spanish Segunda hat too. And we'll definitely have to get out for some third tier games very, very shortly. Just before we get into sort of the rankings we did, so if you listened last week, we did Grupo Uno and predicted where we think everybody's going to finish in that league. If you've not listened to it, press pause now, go back an episode and listen to that one before you listen to this one. Just some housekeeping, I suppose, Liam. News-wise, there's not loads going around, but two exciting news stories which have certainly tickled your fancy this week.
Yeah, I really like the fact that what we all want people to do, isn't it? If they can, is be incentivized to watch Primera Federación football. There's a lot of good people out there already watching this category of football, but when you start offering every single away fan that comes to your ground a ticket to get into the game for €15, 16 out of 20 Grupo Uno clubs have signed up for that. Nowhere in Grupo Dos at this stage, but nearly all of the Grupo Uno clubs are basically allowing away fans to get into their grounds for €15, which I think is a tremendous gesture. I think we mentioned it last week, didn't we? But this is now being laid down in stone, basically, that this is going to happen. And then the other thing I like, although this is kind of more encouraging you to sit at home and watch it, is that a lot of clubs have looked at the La Liga Plus subscription that's out there and have said that their season ticket holders can get subscription for half price. Basically, they will make sure that the fans, and I think that's really good from those who, even with that €15 offer that's out there, can't get to the away games, and some of the away games are a long way away. La Liga Plus is going to show all the games, I think, isn't it? So that means if you go to the home games and you still want to follow your team on the road but can't physically get there, you have this discounted TV package to go with it. So I think those are really positive steps in terms of increasing the exposure of this brilliant love of football.
Yes, exactly. Very good for the fans on that respective. Probably something that's not so good for the fans, Liam. And I do think that we are responsible for the fact that the fixtures were finally released today. I think the mere threat that we were going to put it out there on the podcast has hurried the Primera RF to make an announcement. But up until about 1 o'clock this afternoon, we didn't even know what the kickoff times for match day 2. That's just over a week away. How insane is that, considering, as you mentioned before we start recording, this isn't the elite level of football where the players are paid loads and loads of money to, have nannies and things like that. This is, of decent modicums. It's crazy that we are a week away and still not really knowing, or we didn't know what the fixtures were going to be.
Well, especially because we've seen in this week one, the games are now being played on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. We're told that's a temporary measure because of the temperatures. Then, bizarrely, we've got loads of games kicking off at midday in match day 2. We've waited all this time for these fixtures, and then some of the scheduling just defies belief. I just find it quite extraordinary. As you rightly say, and one of the players, perfectly politely, Diego Forlì, the goalkeeper for Sabadell, politely asked on Twitter, I think he tagged Primera Federación and said, look, any chance of, very slightly jokingly, any chance of finding out when the fixtures are next week, please? Apparently got told to take it down. I just think a complete lack of understanding of what this level is about, and never mind the fans, who obviously don't matter at all. Merida going to Tenerife in either 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 days' time. It's just extraordinary they could be so inept in this sense. And we are looking at a situation, we've been told, where from week 4 onwards, we will know 3 weeks in advance. So from week 4, you should know what the week 5, 6, and 7 fixtures are. But it's not good enough, is it? Why do we have to wait to week 4? And, it's crazy that it's only just over a week away before we finally find out when these games are going to be played. There's no excuse for it whatsoever.
No, there really isn't, and there's no excuse for it to be done in the top two tiers as well. Let's not forget, because and the excuse around television rights and all that just gets banded around. We've already mentioned that every single game gets broadcast for Primera RF this season, so it's not television. And in terms of logistics, they should be able to put all the fixtures out there like they did a few seasons ago. And if some amendments have to be made, they get made in one or two occasions, not this idea that, as you've just mentioned, Merida have got to wait a week beforehand to find out what day they need to book flights to get to Tenerife on.
Yeah, absolutely madness. And what really irritates me about that, they've already given us an excuse. I mean, well, we did used to, because I think some people have said, look, a couple of years ago, you gave two, you announced the fixtures in two halves, basically. In August, you said what the fixtures were going to be till December. And then, December, you gave the rest of the fixtures the rest of the season. And they were apparently their excuses being, well, then we might have to make changes. But I don't think anyone cares, because last time that happened, there were a few changes made, but very few. We're talking about hundreds of fixtures here, and very few amendments are made. Give people especially clubs. And when we talk about individuals, if we wanted to go and watch games, trying to book a flight 9 days notice, extortionately expensive. Imagine you're a club with a limited budget and suddenly, Merida are now having to book, flights at, just a week's notice. They're not going to get a discount because they're a football club. So, if they're bringing 30, 35 people over to that game and including all their backroom staff, that's a huge amount of money extra they're having to spend because they're having to book everything at the last minute. It's just a complete lack of consideration for fans, clubs, everybody, and there's absolutely no explanation for why this happened, and it needs to change. And I really hope this is the last time we're talking about this. But as I've already said, the suggestion is that they're not going to get it sorted properly until week 4. So we may have another situation where this time next week, we still don't know when the week 3 fixtures are being played, and it's just unacceptable for me.
Yeah, crazy. And the idea of being able to book potentially anywhere between 30 and 50 seats on a plane with 1 week's notice is just that boggles my mind ever so slightly. So I think Merida might be taking multiple flights to be able to get to Tenerife just for this one game. So yeah, they really need to sort themselves out, in want of a better word. But that's the light touch of the news. We're going to get back into doing like full news reviews and looking at stuff when we get to the proper shows after the football re-begins this weekend. But for now, we're still in prediction mode. We're still in the uncertainty of pre-season, and we are going to predict Grupo Dos now. Last week we went from top to bottom, from bottom to top. So we're going to stick with that theme as well. And I'm going to begin with our 5 relegation candidates going up from top to bottom. So starting out, finishing in 20th place in Grupo Dos, I am going with Teruel. Is that right, Liam?
You got that, yeah.
Got there eventually. Villarreal B, Algeciras, Europa, and Tarazona. Now, first, let's pronounce Teruel properly, Liam. You are the Spanish speaker among us. How do we do it?
That's actually right. Teruel is absolutely perfect. Yeah, the U is like an O sound, isn't it? Algeciras, though, for most people, because it's G followed by E, and usually Europa. That always confuses us as well because it looks like Europe. But yeah, pronunciation aside, I think, yes, I can certainly agree with you on Teruel. They only came 5th, I think, didn't they, in their Segunda Ref group. Not saying they didn't deserve to come up, because of course they did. Vicente Parra is an interesting character. He was going to be the Yeclano Deportivo new coach, and at the last minute decided he fancied staying in Primera Federación. I think he got a history with Alcoyano or something like that in Primera RF. So he took another Primera RF job. I agree. I mean, obviously, we have an ex-Yeclano presence there as well. Teddy's gone there, the player that we saw last year at Yeclano, and did an interview with, lovely guy. So I very much hope you're wrong about that, because this works out well for him, this move. But Albert, I'm obviously less sympathetic towards, and yeah, they struggled last year, and to me, it's another unknown, isn't it, with Villarreal? We just never know, because they'll bring up players from C team, won't they? They've got David Abeldo in charge now, who used to play quite famously for Valencia, and I think he also played with Villarreal, didn't he? So he's probably a decent coach, I imagine. But what's he working with? Algeciras are definitely, for me, squad wise, gone backwards, I can see them struggling this year. And they need something out of the pitch as well, don't they? It's not looking in great shape.
Yeah.
Europa, talking of pitches, Europa are going to have to switch pitches mid-season because they're going to start on Astro, but then after that they have to switch by January 26th, don't they? I see a squad there that doesn't really convince me. But again, another one that we know a lot about because most of those players we've never seen before. There's not a huge number of. They haven't brought in loads of Primera RFEF experienced players, have they? And so you never quite know how well they'll adapt to the higher level. Brought in a striker from the deadly rivals down the road, San Andreu, but again, he's not played at Primera RFEF level. So and Tarazona, I think they're the team, Nick, that have been hardest done by in terms of switching groups. They've now got to go all over the country. They had quite a few games within reasonably reachable distance. They've now obviously got to go to Andalusia on a regular basis. And, again, financially, that's a huge hit for them. And I do worry about them in terms of the squad as well. I think they, like we said with them, Alentejo and the other group, and to a certain extent, Orense, they're punching above their weight, these sides. And this is a worry for me. So, I wouldn't disagree greatly with any of those. I think any one of those five, and probably several of them will end up in the bottom five.
Yeah, I think, looking at the two promoted sides in isolation, I think you're absolutely spot on that maybe not enough has been done to suggest that they'll be able to compete with the clubs in this level. And compared to Grupo Uno as well, I would say this league is slightly more difficult as well in terms of the stature and the size of the clubs that are involved. So there's a bigger chasm for them to fill. Algeciras, I completely agree that they've gone backwards, and they seem to be having some struggles off the field, which are starting to eat onto the pitch as well by the looks of things. They've not really, they have recruited Primera RFEF players, but the vibe around the club just doesn't seem to be conducive to success at the moment, despite the fact they had a good season last year. But my biggest heartbreak here that I didn't want to write was Tarazona, but I just can't see, Liam, how you can replace the goals of Adrian Fuentes and the influence of Fioli, who we were speaking about before, in between the sticks. Those two players are massive losses to Tarazona, and they've simply not managed to replace them, have they?
I don't think so, no. I mean, I do like Carlos Nieto as a Real Zaragoza fan. I think that's a real coup for them to get him on board, but he's a left back. He's not a keeper, he's not a centre forward. I'm not saying he's not a good player, but that is worrying. I don't see, as you say, they've had 2 or 3 players there last season who've absolutely played out their skins, as you say, Foley and Fuentes. And nice to see Fuentes score for Cordoba. Not a great evening for Cordoba the other night against Las Palmas, but Fuentes came off the bench and scored. It's quite nice. I like to see players who make the step up and do well, in the level above, especially at his age, his late 20s. So brilliant for him. Let's hope he can carry on with that. But he was such a key player for them last year, and he's gone. And Foley obviously kept a huge number of clean sheets. So they're very much unknown. They've got a Wesker Bear striker up front. They've signed, and there's a lot of work to do there to keep them in the division, and there's a lot of travelling to do as well. And I'm not saying that's everything, but it's not going to help, is it really? Because this isn't a club that's going to be chartering private flights, is it? This is a club that's going to be on the bus, and that's tough. Long old bus journeys across Spain, and then expected to play at the best of your ability when you get there, the other end. That's not, for me, conducive to a good season.
No, absolutely agreed. But we'll keep an eye on them, and we'll certainly hope for the best, because I said on our Primera RFEF A to Z as well, going, it pains me to say, but all the facts would point towards that struggle that they're going to have this season, but they may surprise us like they did last year as well. Let's not forget, really punching above their weight, as you've mentioned, in Grupo Uno. Let's move on to the next 5 then. So we're going to go from 15th to 11th, and in 15th
Probably
place,
before we do that, we should just mention that Europa is a similar sort of level, isn't it? Really, a lovely club at the centre of their community. Really, can't really work out why they have to, put down a grass pitch. It's only fair that they should have to, because other teams have had to, and Tarazona is one of those teams. But again, you really hope that they do have a good season. They've been close to getting up to Primera RFEF several times in the last few years. They've finally made it, and we're hoping to go down. So I hope we're wrong, to be honest, Nick, because it's a great club. I've been there myself. I've really enjoyed my time there, and they are up against it, and let's hope they win that battle. But like you, I'm not confident at this stage that they will.
They are the one that makes me think they could be the ones that jump out of there. Maybe the expense of one of the other 2 teams that we're about to put above them. But the good thing about Europa is obviously the continuation of Adi Benitez, the manager. So they've got consistency off the pitch in terms of leadership and guidance. they haven't strengthened massively, but they also haven't lost a lot of players, and they've got a lot of key experience in their side. And, you know, not that good vibes win you points, but obviously they're a club which is kind of like at the centre a bit of European attention as well. So a lot of people like myself really want to get to New Sardinia this season before they're not playing there. But it's completely ridiculous, Liam, that, like you say, that is even a thought process, given, as you've mentioned, the state of Algeciras' pitch. You know what I mean? Like that. That's the ironic factor of it, isn't it? We've seen what it's like at Nueva Mirador, and we're saying that's fine, but an artificial hybrid pitch isn't. And unfortunately, I think that might be one of the factors that hinders Europa this season, unfortunately. But yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed to see if that turns out differently there. So as I mentioned, going from 15th through to 11th, I'm starting with Juventud Torremolinos, finishing 15th. Just above them is Atlético Sanluqueño, Sevilla Atlético in 13th, a rollback for Antequera Club de Football, obviously our playoff finalists last season. And then finishing in 11th, I've gone for Sabadell. What do you think about those five, Liam?
Yeah, I think looking at Torremolinos in 15th place, that would be the one that I'd be most worried about in terms of staying out of the bottom five for exactly the same reason as Europa and Teruel in this group, and similarly Talavera and Cacereño in the other group. We just don't know, do we? We don't know enough about the squads. We do know that Torremolinos have lost Fran Castillo, who obviously scored loads of goals from last season. He's gone to Ibiza. So, you know, that's a big chunk of goals to take out of your team. You know, experienced manager Antonio Calderon, they've kept a lot similar sort of profile, I suppose, to Europa, kept quite a few, added quite a few as well, but we don't know much about many of them. So, yeah, I think that's a team that's going to be, you know, looking nervous over their shoulders for quite a lot of the season. Atlético Sanluqueño, yeah, I don't know what to make of them. Leftui, who came in, I think, on loan at sort of Christmas time from Ceuta, did a great job for them, scored some important goals, but they only just survived. Can't see them getting much further away from the relegation picture this year, can you? So, and you obviously don't, because you've got the 14th. So those two for me, I think, would it be fair to say that both of those two, you could see them interchanging with one or two of the clubs you have put in the bottom five?
Yeah, I think those are the two that I would put at the biggest threat of being displaced in this table. There's just something about Atlético Sanluqueño, though, in terms of they're proverbial survivors, aren't they? They just seem to know how to go on good runs in this league. And I think that experience over Torremolinos, over Teruel or Europa will just benefit them. But again, I suppose the question would be, if you were an Atlético Sanluqueño fan, is how long can we continue to tread water? And this is the thing with El Pozo, is that you start to really falter or start to go slightly backwards, it's a big pull, and then it's a struggle to go back down again. We look at some of the teams that have gone down last season, and can we realistically see them coming straight back up again? You probably think maybe not. I'm talking about Alcayano, Fuenlabrada, etc. And I feel like Atlético Sanluqueño very much fits in that category, but I think they've just maybe got enough to survive the fight this season, and there are five worse sides in there that probably will benefit them. In terms of the teams above them as well, we won't spend much time on Sevilla Atletico, but again, they're not really doing too much in terms of recruitment. They're just benefiting from the cantera that they've got. But Antequera, for me, Liam, again, I've put them in 12th, but I could even maybe count them in that category of being slightly in danger, because the change they've had this summer is so dramatic, and they are still such a small club. It's going to be interesting to see how they get on without, say, like Javi Medina and key players that have moved on from last year's successes.
Yeah, and a lot of talk that Alex Rubio, the guy who plays up front for them, might eventually be sold. They're holding firm and saying they're not taking less than the money that they want. And as often happens in these situations, the club, the buying club, is trying to strike a deal that favours them. And it's one of those, isn't it? It's kind of like a bit of a game of chicken, really, isn't it? Who's going to blink first, sort of thing. Are they going to eventually accept that 300,000 euros is a lot of money for their club, or are they going to stick to the guns and saying, look, you pay what we want, or he's staying with us? And of course, the player, meanwhile, is thinking, I probably do want to go. I'm probably going to get a better wage elsewhere, and so why why will they not let me go? So it's a really tricky one. We'll talk about one of those later on, I think, in this episode, won't we, Nick? But yeah, I think you're right. I think they're definitely. I can't see them being anywhere near the playoffs this year. I'm delighted that Biabiani is staying for another year, of course, because he's one of my favourite players in Primera RF. But yeah, I don't think they're going to get anywhere near where they finished last season. Was it semi-finals or final? I can't remember which one it was they went out in. But they made the playoffs. That's the main thing, and we're always on course to do so. I can't see them pushing at the top end this season. So yeah, let's go sign Alex Costa. That's the only thing that they've done really significant for me from Ponferradina, and he's shown a lot of promise up there. I think he might turn out really well for them. I certainly hope for his sake he does, that he gets loads of goals, because I like him, but I hope the rest of the team is awful so that they don't benefit from all his goals. Sabadell is an interesting one, isn't it? Ferran Costa, who did really well. I think he was at Lleida and then got the Andorra job and didn't really work out, but you suspect there's a decent coach in there. And he's been given the job of overseeing this team that are a bit yo-yo between Segunda Federación and Primera Federación. And I like some of their signings. Of course, Diego Forlé is one of them, the goalkeeper. I think he's not bad. There's San Escudero as well from Algeciras, who was really good for them up front last year. Another reason why I think Algeciras might struggle is because Escudero has left. So yeah, I could see them finishing slightly higher than that. It just depends, I think. And I love the stab of that club. I mean, I think, haven't they got like season tickets for like €95 or something as well? It's a big ground. It always feels a bit empty to me when I see it on the telly. But you know, it might be a bit fuller this year because, as I say, I think you can get a season ticket there for €95, which is a fantastic deal. I mean, you know, £85 to watch, you know, that's basically like, you know, €4 a game, isn't it? You know, it's quite tremendous. Or £4 a game. You know, it really is a club that seems to be determined not to fall back into Segunda Federación this time around, and I think they'll certainly do enough not to. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if they were a bit nearer fifth than you have them, but we'll see.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. These are the side that, you know, seems to be showing intent as well, and as you've mentioned with those signings there, and it's a club that it is established. You know, I was quite surprised, you know, looking into the sort of like background of it, the successes that Sabadell have had, you know, in their history. Obviously not in their more recent history. They've been a bit of a yo-yo between third and fourth, as you said. But, you know, this was an established Segunda club, you know, for a long period of time during, especially, I think it was the 70s and 80s. And they do have the profile being just on the outskirts of Barcelona that, you know, they've got the ability to attract a crowd as well. So I think, absolutely agree with you. If they've got those season ticket prices this season, there is no reason why they wouldn't fill that stadium out. So it's definitely high up on my list to go visit. It'll just be making sure that they score the goals. That'll be the thing for me. I can see that you know, the manager has got a very solid defensive foundation in Sabadell. It's just whether they get the goals to go with it, and that'll be interesting to see. And I bet my bottom dollar that they're either going to struggle and score one odd goal a game, maybe, or I'm going to be eating humble pie and they're going to be the Leeds top goal scorers by Christmas. So, you know, like you said, we don't know sometimes with these Segunda F promotees, do we?
Not at all, no. As I say, it's quite a lot resting, I suppose, in a way, on Escudero's shoulders, because, you know, he's done well last season, but, you know, can he come back and do it again this season in a different environment? But yeah, I mean, as I say, you look down the list of who. I mean, I like Costia as well. I mean, he didn't really do it at Hercules big time last year, but, you know, I think he's not a bad strong. I think Costia and Escudero as your two centre forwards, if they decide to play both and play a 4-4-2 or whatever, you know, I think that's not bad at all. You know, I like the look of that, and. You know, as I say, Forley was the best keeper probably in Primera Federación last year. So I don't see him struggling at all. But I do think that they on the other side of things, I think they might get nearer. But it's such a tough group, isn't it? I look towards the top end as I was looking through your predictions, thinking, wow, you know, we'll get to it in time as in terms of who might not make the top five, and there will be a big team, you know, who's not making the top five this year in this group, definitely.
Do you want a slight little Blackpool link with Sabadell? Is the reason why I'm maybe going to be favouring them ever so slightly this season?
Yeah, what's the link there? It's presumably not Oriol again, is it?
No. Though he has just retired, I've noticed before, but we'll address that when we go into Nasty to Tarragona. There was a centre midfielder who used to play for Blackpool called Angel Martinez. A great, you know, ball playing midfielder. absolutely loved living on the Fylde Coast, and he went to Sabadell after he left Blackpool when they were playing in the Spanish Segunda, I think it was, and got relegated with them. But I think last season he was their assistant manager, but he still lives in the area, I believe. So would love to speak to him about Sabadell. So maybe a future link up. I'm going to put it out there now and tag him on Twitter. Let's see whether we can move some meetings around. But yeah, they are.
That sounds great. Yeah,
very
you're right for that. That'd be brilliant. Yeah, Blackpool and Sabadell. There's not many people who can count those as the two of their career clubs, do they? So that's a brilliant link. And yeah, it'd be great to have a chat with him, wouldn't it, if we get over there?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and that is like, I'm trying to find a weekend where we can get the fixtures to align with Europa and Sabadell, maybe in the same weekend. I think that would be just great. So yeah, that is our 15th to 11th. Just to repeat it: Torremolinos, Atlético Ceñeño, Sevilla, Atlético, Antequera, and Sabadell. Going from 10th through to 6th now, Liam, and I think this is where we're going to start getting interesting. I've got Betis Deportivo finishing 10th. I've got Nastica Tarragona in 9th, which I think is our first controversial opinion. Fernando Torres' Atlético Madrileño finishing in 8th. Cartagena finishes in 7th, which is another controversial opinion, I reckon. And Real Murcia finishing in 6th, just missing out on the playoffs. Are we in alignment here, or am I underestimating some of these sides?
Yeah, I think we might start to disagree here, and especially because I've now worked out from those 5 who you've got in the top 5, and some of them are undisputed. But yeah, there's a potential for a whole lot of movement, I think, between 10th to 6th and 5th to 1st. For me, I cannot see Real Murcia not finishing the top 5. I like the recruits. I mean, I didn't massively like Ekain in Segunda, but I think he's a decent Primera Federación striker at that level, and I don't think he'll have a problem if he plays him up front, he plays him in the hole, whatever he chooses to do. And Cristo Romero, excellent left back. Álvaro Bustos, very strong at Ponfe last year. Can't see him not working out. Moyita, a bit older, but Castellón played for them plenty of games last season. I like their recruits a lot, and I think they have lost 1 or 2 good players. But generally, yeah. And Echeverria, I really rate as a coach. So I cannot see them. I obviously looked at the top 5 and thought, well, who would they replace? I think they replaced one of them. I'm just not sure which one. So I don't agree with that. Mm-hmm. why have you put them outside the top 5? What's your reasoning behind that?
I think sometimes I think part of it is down to the fact that who they have lost, and a big part of who they had last season, with the likes of Lauren Burron and the chap they had on loan from Castellón, David Flacus, I think it was his name.
Yeah, they might still sign him. They're still trying to get him back in, And I suppose this is one of these, isn't it? It's one of these, transfer window klaxons, isn't it? That we talk about sometimes. That we are talking now, with probably, very few hours to go, but there is still time. There is still one more weekend. Mm-hmm. Is it the 1st or 2nd September it closes? I think it's the start of next week, isn't it? So yeah. There was talk that Flacus might be involved with Castellón this weekend with the first team, and then maybe they'll get him. But then again, talk the Castellón wouldn't let him go unless they had a replacement. So that, as you say, that could be a key. I mean, I imagine if we come back in a week and Flacus has signed for them, you might be thinking they will now be top 5 because he's that kind of differential player, isn't he?
That, or let me just throw a couple of other. I know we spoke about Mario Balotelli being one of the rumoured signings. I know you mentioned about Burgos as well. He was linked to Real Murcia earlier on in the window. The one I saw this week, which I found very interesting, was Radamel Falcao to Real Murcia, Liam. I think that would be interesting, wouldn't it, if El Tigre turned up in the Primera Federación, and I would certainly count them a little bit higher if they brought in the Colombian striker.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen play for a long time. Similarly, Balotelli, you wonder with these kind of ones, don't you? You wonder whether there's really any. How serious are they about signing these kind of players? And what sort of wages would they have to pay them? How deep are the directiva's pockets? I think they're better off just concentrating on signing quality, proven Primera Federación players like Flacus. I wouldn't worry too much about these kind of big name signings. I think they're going to come with a lot of baggage, either of those two, and I think they're fairly unlikely to happen. But again, might be talking next week, and one of them might have shown up before Monday and signed on the dotted line. I think that I can't see Echeverria being massively enamored with that idea, but as we know, the coaches in the whole don't necessarily run the show, do they? They often work with what they're given rather than being massively involved in the decision-making process of signings. But yeah, I can't see them not finishing top 5. As long as they get off to a half decent start, the crowds will be behind them. There'll be pressure, of course, there always is around Murcia because it's such a big club. It shouldn't really be in Primera Federación at all in terms of fan base, in terms of the size of the club, masa social, etc. But yeah, they for me, I can't see them doing worse than they did last season. They made the playoffs last season. I can't see how they wouldn't make them this season. And they've got a shout if they start well for the automatic promotion space that goes to being champions. But we'll see in due course.
Absolutely, we're not going to dwell too much on the B teams in there. I think both of them are the top spenders so far in this transfer window, both making signings for over €1 million from respective places. Javi Medina's gone into Betis Deportivo, so maybe they will finish slightly higher if he picks up where he left off, but let's hope they don't. I want to talk to you about Cartagena, Liam, because obviously they're a team that you watched a lot last season, really, really struggled down at the bottom of the Spanish Segunda. There's a lot of off-the-field issues as well, a lot of protests against the ownership. They have to bring in a decent manager and have been recruiting quite well for an assault on the playoffs. But will those off-field problems seep into the on-field problems as well? Do you see where I'm going? Why they're not in the playoffs?
Well, no, my understanding is that's been solved, hasn't it? I think that the guy, I'm slightly confused about this because I thought the guy that is being put in charge of the team at Alan Taylor was actually the son of the guy who was going to buy Alan Taylor. And that seemed to be almost done and dusted, that particular deal. And then suddenly he was being touted as the new owner of Cartagena, and I didn't really understand that because obviously he can't own both clubs, and I don't know what's happened to Alan Taylor in the meantime, and it would seem that his son is still going to be the coach of Alan Taylor. So I'm not sure what happened there, but my understanding is that they that there is a new owner in place, and that after some really, as you say, dark times last year during the season, and then in the postseason, had no players, no coach. It was looking really, really horrible. I think the situation has changed now, and I think they have, obviously, as you say, they've got decent coaching. They signed a lot of players. As with any club that comes down, essentially it's an entirely new squad of players. They have brought in some players with experience from last season in Segunda, but Chiqui was relegated with Racing Club de Ferrol, as was Nacho Sanchez. I do like Lucho Garcia, the keeper at Algeciras. Another reason why I think Algeciras will struggle this year. They've lost the keeper. I thought he was heading back to South America, but he's actually stayed in Spain with Cartagena. So yeah, it looks like a half decent squad there. To be fair, that they put together at fairly short notice because this ownership issue dragged on for a period after the end of the season. But I think you're about right. I don't think they're going to be. I think there will be a feel-good factor around that club because things have got better. So if they get off to a quick start, maybe they can make top 5. But I think just outside the playoffs is probably about right, Nick, to be honest.
And are we excited to see the return of Pablo de Blasis?
Very excited.
To see him back in Spain, isn't it?
Very excited, yeah. And again, but they always say never go back, don't they? I'm not sure how that'll work out for him. I'm a massive fan of his, though. I really like him, and he might be 37, but I think he still has the potential to be a really influential player. And if they get anyone, get a player of anywhere near the level he was playing at when he left in his Segunda days, he could be absolutely fundamental for their chances of making that top 5. But there's just so many good sides out there, isn't there? As you say, that I think probably they're certainly, the players they brought in, they certainly will aspire to finish top 5. I'm not quite sure they're going to make it.
No, and then maybe the last controversial point to make is Nasties to Tarragona. Obviously, they've been playoffs finalists for, I think, is it the last 4 out of 5 seasons, something mad like that, Liam. Finishing down in 9th is definitely moving backwards for them, but I just can't see how they could lose the amount of talent that they've got and have, I don't want to say that San Pedro is a negative manager. That's not what I'm trying to say, but he doesn't seem to have the same sort of approach to football, say, that Danny Vidal had. So I'm struggling to see how they're going to improve this season.
Totally agree. And I think, to be fair, most Nasties fans would probably say the same. I don't think, it feels controversial because they've been so consistently in the top 5 for the last few seasons. Obviously, they're now in Grupo 2, having been in Grupo 1 last season. And yeah, I mean, 3 names: Antonin, Pablo Fernandez, and Victor Naro, all gone. Goal contributions in terms of assists and goals themselves. Those 3 players were massively the reason why they did so well last season. They've all gone. So what does that tell you about, what they're trying to replace? And yeah, they brought in some half decent players. I like Baselga. He did well at Alan Taylor last year. Of course, he's got a pretty decent record at Primera Federación level. I do like Cedric, who they brought in from Fuenlabrada. So 2 decent strikers. Don't get me wrong, Anthony and Pablo Fernando, good players, but they've found 2 decent replacements. And I think a lot of people would say, well, look at a lot of the defenders they've cleared out. Dufour and even players like David Concha and Gorstide. I think they say these were all kind of squad players, should we say, and then perhaps certainly defensively they were a little bit slow, and so maybe some people wouldn't be that bothered to see so many of the starting 11 from last season go, and they've pretty much started again, haven't they, in terms of the starting 11 that they're going to have to field this year. So it feels like it isn't as good as last season, the squad, although it's not bad. And in such a competitive division, I think that might mean that they struggle to make the top 5 again. And as you say, San Pedro, is he really up for it? Is he really, does his belly burn with the fire of the desire to get them out of this situation? I didn't get that vibe from him at all at the end of last season. So let's hope he's just he's a man who doesn't show his emotions, and deep down he's really, really keen to make it work. Yeah, I have the same reservations as you, to be honest.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't look like a man that shows his emotions. I don't think I saw him crack a smile once since returning to the club last season. But he has obviously got, former of doing this, so he could prove his wrong in his entirely. But I agree with you entirely. There just seems to be too many decent players that have followed the deadwood out of it as well. So I do agree that some players did need to be moved on. They'd had their cycle with the club, but not replacing those high quality players. And I tell you what, some Spanish Segunda clubs, and maybe dare I say some lower end the Liga clubs who are looking for a bargain, they've really missed out on Victor Naro as well. He is Sampdoria's gain, an absolute bargain at 350,000 euros as well, because he is so good. So yeah, let's we'll keep an eye on him from afar, won't we, Liam, as he gets on in Italy.
Yeah, he's one of those, isn't he? When you watch him run, the way he runs and everything, it doesn't feel like doesn't inspire the kind of feeling of this is a really good player. And then you actually just watch him and you think, yeah, he really is. I saw him a number of times last season, and every time I was impressed with him. He could have had just one of those seasons that was that. He hasn't had a career that's been littered with seasons like that. But if he can reproduce that kind of form, as you say, Sampdoria have got an absolute bargain there.
Yes, absolutely. So there is some movement potentially, and some disagreements between myself and Liam on that one there. Let's see how we feel about the top 5 then. So moving into the playoff positions in 5th, a complete turnaround on last season's fortunes for Marbella, finishing 5th for me. Alcorcon as well, moving into the playoffs. Obviously, they are good at getting promoted from this league, would be the way to describe it. Hercules is another surprise and maybe putting up there as well. Eldense in 2nd, and then winning the league this season, I'm going for Ibiza. Liam, is that a controversial top 5? Am I talking absolute rubbish with that top 5? Where are we agreeing and where are we not agreeing?
Yeah, there's a couple of things there. Now, Marbella clearly a lot stronger. I like Marbella's recruitment. I think it's impressive. I'm not just saying that because they've signed my beloved Cabrera centre half, and you probably like the recruitment because they've signed a couple of the ex-Malaga players, haven't they? Brought in Escassi, haven't they? He's been moved on from Ibiza. I'm not saying that's necessarily a step forward. He's Ibiza, so he's not good enough for their defence, so he's ended up at Marbella instead, which some may say is a good move for him, and some may say is a good move for Ibiza. But yeah, I do think they're a lot better. I do think they're a lot better than they were. I like the recruitment. I'm not sure that it's enough to push them top 5, but for me, that's not an outrageous shout at all. Alcorcon, the big question mark here for me, Nick, is Vladis. Is he staying? Is he going? Again, probably one of those by this time next week. if he stays and is prepared to knuckle down and get on with it, then that's okay. If he stays and is unhappy, that's going to affect them. If he goes, that's also going to affect them. He's dragged over such a long time. We're hearing that Vladis wants to go, but the club think that the offer from Cardiff is insulting because it's so far below his release clause. And so, there's a bit of deadlock there. Will that be solved by next week? Well, we'll know by the next time we speak to each other about Primera Federación, Nick. And I think that's a big part, even though the recruitment's good, to lose him like Vladis, especially this late in the market. Although I'm sure that they think they might do, and therefore, they are going to plan for that. They will probably have got somebody they can bring in at short notice if he does go. But yeah, he's fundamental for me in terms of their chances of making top 5. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is based around that. Don't get me wrong. I think the recruitment has also been quite impressive, and they were certainly one of the first clubs out the door in July that basically went and got who they needed to get, and essentially patched holes in their squad from last season. Because let's not forget, they were relegated from the Spanish Segunda the season before, so there was maybe an expectation of rebuilding. But I think they'll look at last season and still consider it to be not a failure, but not where they wanted to be. But the fact that they've managed to go and get, say, like Borja Martinez, who's like the Primera RFEF assist king. He's the leading assist maker in this league. Sergio Nieto as well. We spoke last week about Zamora's spending spree, and I'm sure he's a left back there they would love to have kept, but he's been tempted to the capital by the club. And even today, signing like Raul Blanco, just these recruits seem to have something about them, and they're going about their business quite smartly. And let's not forget, this is a club that knows how to get out of this league, more importantly, as well. So I think they can be quite attritional when they want to be, but quite exciting when they're on form too. But I do agree, Vladis is a big part of that, because you need that goal scorer at this level. They are literally the difference between promotion and staying in the third tier, aren't they?
I think so, yeah. I think he really impressed me last year, and obviously he's really impressed Cádiz as well. And they've just lost Chris Ramos to, I think, Brazil. I think it's on to Botafogo. So they have got money to spend, and maybe this is it. Maybe this is all part of the kind of, high-stakes poker that these two sides are playing, and maybe in due course, Vladis will go. The other thing, of course, he leaves for free next summer. So the club could be thinking, well, you know what, we need to hang on to it. It's a big gamble. It's only now 600,000 euros, but we're a bit insulted by this figure because I think they got a lot more for Ramos than that. And are we willing to gamble on losing 600,000 euros, watching him walk away for free next year? Is promotion to Segunda really worth 600,000 euros? Absolutely it is. Is he the player who could deliver it, not single-handedly, but make the big difference like you just said? Very possibly. Then you could get injured in week 1, couldn't he? So it's a real tough situation for Alcorcon to find themselves in. And as I say, it, of course, will be resolved by the time we next speak about this topic next week. But yeah, he is a very, very good player.
Don't forget about the 10-point lead, though, Liam.
Sorry?
I was going to say, don't forget about the 10-point lead that they've got. For having this kit. This kit is worth 10 points, surely.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. You
Again,
feel it should be put ahead of everyone else on the kit alone, shouldn't you?
I genuinely like. Obviously we did a kit show for Spanish Segunda last week, and there's so many ones on there. I think this might be the best kit in Spain. I genuinely feel as if it could be the best kit in Spain this season. It's a Kappa, so obviously we had a lot of love for Kappa last week, but it's so clean and deserves 10 points. And if it doesn't get promoted, I'm going to be very, very, very upset. So that's why I've got them.
The 10-point. I have to say, when you put it out at the festival, there were sort of people who we'd never heard from before going, "What is that kit?" When they, it's like it really drew an awful lot of acclaim from a very wide circle of people. So yeah, I agree, it's a lovely kit. Sadly, we can't give 10-point leads to teams that bring out great kits. But yeah, it's a nice notion to have anyway, and well done to Kappa. And yeah, I look forward to seeing them wear it with pride this year, as I'm sure Alex O'Brien, also perhaps the most famous Alcorcon fan outside of Spain, who runs the Alcorcon Irlanda Twitter account. I'm sure he's loving it as well. And I'm sure that as soon as he gets over there to watch a home game, he'll be snapping up that strip. Yeah, I mean, champions, interesting. Ibiza. I know what you mean there. I do like some of the recruitment. I mean, I think obviously we just spoke about Fran Castillo earlier on being a big loss for Torremolinos. Hasn't played at this level, but was very, very impressive. And obviously, I think Ibiza have paid money from him, haven't they? Or is he a free? Yeah, so
No,
obviously they can
it's
say
about,
they see a player who they
it's about
think
300,000.
can make the step up, and fair play to them for that, for giving a chance to somebody who's only played Segunda Federación, and it may well turn out to their favour. I like some of the recruits, and also, often you're focusing, aren't you, over the summer on the new players coming in, but they have still got Bebe, they have still got Alex Gaillard, I believe, and Alex Gaillard was quite injury prone last year. But Bebe came in, I think, around in the winter transfer window, didn't he? And really impressed. He's getting on, but he's still a massive influence there. And when you add those kind of players to the players that they've recruited, like Castillo, and I like Josep Senier. It's interesting. I felt like at first they kind of were getting rid of some of the older players like Iscasi, trying to freshen up the squad, and then they signed Federico and Josep Senier, who are not old, they're 31 and 33 respectively, but they've both got quite a lot of experience in Segunda, and they've obviously, especially Senior, I really like him, but again, a bit injury prone. So yeah, I think it's not a bad shout at all to have them as champions. I think there is a lot of quality, and I think they're possibly a little bit better than they were last season, and they were obviously there or thereabouts, weren't they, before falling away at the end. So yeah, and one or two unknowns, of course. Tamir Glazer, no idea what he does. He's a central midfielder. He brought anything from Israel, hasn't he? There's another one I can't remember who. There's another player I looked at and thought, who is he? Oh, Manuel Pedreño, who's played in, I think, Slovenia. Again, centre half, young centre half. I've never seen him play, so they've obviously scouted these two and thought that they can do a job in Primera Federación, and we'll see how they get on with it. But yeah, I don't think that's a completely outlandish shout from you, Nick.
No, and I think for me, it's the Paco Gémez effect, and I think at times he got caught out a bit last season. But he is a very high quality manager for this level, isn't he? He knows what he's doing, and he knows how to get success out of a team. I think you're absolutely right that as much as, again, probably similarly to how we've spoken about a couple of other sides, they have shifted the deadwood out. Like say, it's aging players, some people who maybe weren't performing as good as they should have been doing. But they've also lost a couple of players I'm sure they wanted to keep as well. Marc Domenech has gone up to Spanish with Andorra, Guillermo Molina as well, again moving to Portugal. He's a massive loss, and they're never going to truly be able to replace them, but I think they've managed to bring in enough quality to compete towards the top end of the season, the league once again this season. So yeah, and there just seems to be a good vibe around the place as well with Ibiza at the minute. They've just celebrated 10 years as a club. They're doing a lot of celebrating and promoting themselves, and I think if they can get it right, then they will be able to be up there. However, I do think El Dente will be on their tails, because I think, again, they know how to get out of this league, don't they, Liam?
Yeah, I think for me, this is perhaps the biggest unknown in terms of, we've talked about lots of unknowns across these two groups in terms of, can they stay up? Will they be mid-table? I think El Dente, again, is this slightly on reputation here? This is an entirely new squad. I know very little about it, to be perfectly honest. Everyone's left in the summer, and they brought in 20 players or something crazy, haven't they? New coach. And I honestly don't know what to make of them at all in terms of who they've signed. I think there are not many, to say, names that ring a bell with me. And so are we just saying that because they know how to get out of this league? Yes, they have got out of this league once before. And one would hope that they, will gain some confidence from that and think, we dropped down, but we're perfectly capable of bouncing back up again. But I just don't know what to make of them. And on that basis, I don't think I could put them top five, because they are such an unknown to me. And there are other teams in this league, I know what they're about, but that doesn't necessarily mean they won't finish top five. It just means that I couldn't put myself out there and go, this is the top five side, because I just know so little about the squad that they've put together there.
Yeah, it is an interesting one, because again, when you look at players in isolation they brought in, you probably think, meh. I'll sing the praises of Dione all day long, but would I say he's the kind of player that's going to get promotion? I wouldn't necessarily say that, but he's experienced at this level. He's done it before. He's the top goal scorer ever for this level. Jesus Clemente got promoted last season with Andorra. They seem to be stacking the decks with players who know this league inside out, and that will probably benefit them. But I do agree, probably to an extent, that until they actually start playing football together, we won't really know. Pre-season looks like it's been quite good for them though, so that should be quite interesting. What about the side close to them, just over in Alicante, Hercules? This is a massive club for this level, isn't it, Liam? Just past 10,000 season ticket holders for the Jose Rico Perez as well. One of many sleeping giants in this league. Do you think they could reach the playoffs this season?
Yeah, I do. I really like their recruitment. I really like what they brought in. And I also think you say sleeping giants, 10,000 season ticket holders. Add 3,000 to 5,000 to that if they start well. This is a club that has got potential to go even higher than that. I think in terms of attendances, I remember going there 2 or 3 seasons ago, and they went to Segunda RF, I think, at that stage, and there were like 2,000 or 3,000 there. But there is definitely a good feeling around this place. Obviously, they got promoted, and there was a real feel-good factor. And I think they underperformed last season, but I like the look of their recruitment this year. I really do. I think Slavi, it hasn't really worked out for Slavi at Segunda level, but at Primera RFEF level, I remember in the season at Unionistas when he was absolutely superb. And Fransol, he's 33. He's probably classed as a veteran nowadays, in football terms. But he's a really good target man, isn't he? And he'll chip him with a few goals as well. I think that's a smart signing. I like Ropero, who I think did all right last year at Eldense, but I think he'll be better suited to this level. And he's still only on loan from Alaves, so they're not willing to let him go. So they clearly see something in him. Jeremy De Leon, who's interestingly one of these ones that's been loaned out by Real Madrid Castilla. You always think, well, why would they loan somebody out to the same division, not the same Grupo, but the same level, I should say. But they're both right-sided players, so I suppose they're not both going to play. But that's some decent competition. If you look for 2 decent players in each position, that's 2 there. Not totally convinced by Rentero. They brought in from Alcorcon. They paid money for him as well. He's fairly steady, but he wouldn't be somebody I'd be paying 100,000 euros for. But yeah, and Javi Jimenez, dear old Javi, he's one of the ones moved out to freshen up Ibiza squad, but he's steady enough, isn't he? He's always going to get a job, in Primera RFEF at least, whilst he's under 30, which he still is. And yeah, so it looks good to me. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they made the playoffs. I agree with you. I think they moved forward over the summer in terms of what they've recruited, and they've still kept some really decent players from last season. Haven't really lost anybody that they would be desperately upset about losing. So yeah, it looks good for me, that particular squad moving forward.
Yeah, the Jeremy De Leon one was very interesting for me because he was, last time I saw him at this level, he was with Castellon in the season when they got promoted. He was only there till January, but I remember Matt Harrison, who I used to do the Geary with, he waxed lyrical around De Leon, said he's an absolutely fantastic player. He was linked to a couple of Spanish Segunda clubs in the summer, so it's surprising to see that he's come down to this level again. Bearing in mind that he was on the bench in a Champions League final less than 2 years ago. So, it's very, very interesting move for him. But, hey, it's to the benefit of Hercules. And I do think this season has got massive potential for them. And, again, it just feels like they would be a good news story as well. Let's not forget, we talk about, teams coming up in the Spanish Segunda. A lot of focus has been on Ceuta. There's been a lot of focus on Real Oviedo getting back into La Liga. Hercules Club de Football getting back into the La Liga setup would be a huge story as well. So I think they've got everything they need to do that this season. And, who knows, they might even challenge towards that automatic spot too, but we won't know until a ball is kicked. But yeah, I think that's what we went through there. A few more disagreements this week, Liam, compared to Grupo Uno, but I would also say a bit more of a difficult league to judge. Is that fair?
Totally agree. Look at those top 10, and let's just go through them again quickly. You've got Ibiza as champions, followed by Eldense, Hércules, Alcorcón, Marbella in the playoffs. 6 to 10 was Real Murcia, Cartagena, Atlético Madrileño, Nastic Tarragona, Betis Deportivo. I wouldn't count any of those sides out in terms of a top 5 finish. None of them. Yeah. I think Javi Medina might well. You said he spent money, a good coach, and Tequera got a better budget, better setup behind him. We've got them 10th. It wouldn't surprise me if they finish 5th. Equally, if it doesn't quite work out for Marbella, even though they're stronger, I think, than last season, they might well finish 9th. It's so interchangeable. As I say, the only thing I think that I really disagree with you about is Real Murcia. I'd be surprised if they don't finish top 5. But again, I couldn't tell you which team I'm absolutely convinced will drop out of that top 5 for them to take their place. So, yeah, absolutely right. I think, Nick, this is a harder group to predict. not so much because there are so many unknowns, but more because there seem to be a lot of really strong sides, and there's going to be very little to choose between them, I think.
And we will get to choose between. We'll be back next week with results, Liam. Primera RFEF is back, and I know we're buzzing to start talking about it again. So we get kick-off on Friday night, I think it is now, isn't it? I still can't get my head around this Friday, Monday thing. It feels very La Liga, and I don't think I like it. But we do kick off on Friday evening. We'll have the shows going back to being released on Wednesdays. You can get the show on the El Pozo podcast feed, or you can go to the Spanish Segunda Patreon if you're a subscriber there and have that free as part of the service too. Or you can go to YouTube and watch us if you'd like to watch two chaps who looks like we've dressed for the occasion today, Liam, both wearing green. I'd say subtly supporting a side, but the only green team I can recognise in this league is Antiquera or Torremolinos or San Eugenio. So actually it's more than I thought.
Real Betis as well, I suppose.
No, never Real Betis. Never Real Betis. But
not the right green. Not that green. Yeah, it's a green. You're right.
So, yes, enjoy your football this weekend, everybody. We'll be back next week to talk about all 20 fixtures across Primera RF at the weekend. We look forward to doing it there. Thank you so much for listening at home, and we look forward to bringing you everything happening this season. I'll thank you again, once again, Liam, for joining me.
Absolute pleasure.
And we will see where our predictions, and I'm saying our predictions end up in June next season. Will be very interesting to see how it looks. But for now, I'll say thank you very much and goodbye.